Okay, so today I was gonna make a video on the FA-18A, but I can't find a single 12.7 lobby that's actually active. So today we're going to do a settings video. First things first, I am on PlayStation 5. I use the T-Flight HOTAS 4, I think, from Thrustmaster, along with a PS5 controller on the side of it. And disclaimer, I have a very weird control scheme. You are going to want to go for sim, full reel controls, toggle SAS mode. This is very necessary, and I have it bound to X on my controller. It'll just make it so much more stable to fly. And then we're going to want throttle axis, bind that to something. I have it bound to the throttle on my HOTAS. Roll axis, I have that bound to left or right on my HOTAS. Pitch axis, that is up down on my HOTAS. Actually, I have that inverted. So when you pull your stick towards you, your plane pitches up. Then when you push it away from you, your plane pitches down. That's how they have it in real life. Yaw axis is your rudder. So it's default on this HOTAS bound to twisting the stick. I always found that I would be making unintentional adjustments when I pull the stick hard. So I bound it to the rocker on the back of the throttle. Flaps down and flaps up. You don't want to have it on toggle flaps because then you won't get full control of them. I have two essentially shift buttons on my controller. I have the triangle button on the HOTAS. You can hold that down and then press, for me it's the square button, and that combined is flaps down. And then the triangle and X buttons combined, that is flaps up. Toggle air brake is very useful for jets. I have that bound to triangle. Toggle gear is the same thing as the flaps, but it is triangle and circle. Left brake I've bound to L2 and R2. On the controller next to the HOTAS, I just pick it up. And right brake, all you need to do is hold down the right trigger. Small caliber guns, I don't use it. Large caliber guns, again, I don't use it. What I do use is fire primary weapons. That I have to the trigger on my HOTAS stick. Fire secondary weapons, I have the L1 button on my HOTAS stick. Jettison secondary weapons, I have that bound to left on the D-pad on the controller next to my HOTAS. Now, the reason you want fire primary weapons, which will pretty much only be your gun, and then secondary weapons, is because you can switch through your secondary weapons with another button. So none of this is actually needed. You might want to bind fire rocket salvo to something just so you don't have to press it a lot. If we scroll down here, switch secondary weapons, I have that bound to the L3 button on my HOTAS stick. That will activate weapon selection. Be sure to activate it. It's almost like a master arm with this control scheme. Be sure to activate it on the runway, and then whenever you press fire secondary weapons, it will activate a missile seeker. Then once it is locked, you just press the same button, fire secondary weapons, and it will fire again. Fire flares and chaff. You can have this bound just to fire countermeasures. I do not. I prefer having them separate. So fire flares I have bound to the R2 button on the back of the throttle. Fire chaff I have bound to the L2 button on the back of the throttle. So switch radar, IRST search on and off. Here's where the second shift button comes into play. The second shift button is the square button on the throttle of my HOTAS. If I hold square and then hold the trigger, it switches the radar/IRST with on and off. And then you can change the radar IRST mode with down on the D-pad of the controller. Radar/IRST beyond within visual range combat. I have this with the square button, again the second shift, and then the R3 button on the HOTAS. lock radar slash IRST on target is bound to the triangle button on the throttle of the HOTAS. Select radar slash IRST target to lock. That is right on the D-pad, view in battle, air. So for the X-axis, which is looking left and right, I have it bound to the right stick moving left and right. Y-axis, right stick moving up and down. Head movement, upward, downward. This is very, very important. I have this bound to the little scrolly button thing on the flight stick, and then I have the square button on the throttle, basically the second shift. It resets it. Toggle cockpit sight. Not a very needed one. I just use it for extra visibility sometimes. I have that bound to square on the controller. Radial menu navigation. You're going to want this. I have this bound to the left stick. Trim, I do not use trim. That may be another reason why I'm bad at props. Manual engine control. Engine controls mode is bound to up on the D-pad, which is the same as toggle view, but in sim it doesn't really matter because you're automatically forced to cockpit view. If you're a twin engine like the F-14, then you can do some pretty goofy maneuvers with it. First engine controls and second engine controls. So this takes the second shift, the square button on the throttle, and then first engine controls is with the R2 button, which is the flare button, and then same for square and shaft button. Thrust vector I have as circle and X on the HOTAS throttle. Switch maneuver and limits mode I have just on circle of the throttle of the HOTAS. That's pretty much only for the F-18. Drop additional fuel tank is the R1 button of the controller next to the HOTAS. Zoom camera I have to the R3 button on the stick of the HOTAS. Chat I have as the L2 button on my controller. Multifunction menu I have as touchpad tap. This will be different for Xbox players. You can set it on something else. Statistics I press in on the touchpad to see basically the player list. Tactical map I have a circle on the controller. I have favorite radio message #1. Follow me. This is very, 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 very useful because quick tip for sim, if you see people saying follow me, guide on me, move after me in the chat, they're not asking for you to form up like a Star Fox game. All they're saying is their position. So then if you check the tactical map, you will see their little positions popping up. And since sim has no markers until you get really close, this is very useful for target identification. So if somebody says follow me, it is highly recommended to follow up with the same radio message. So for this, I have quick radio message to L1 on my controller. You will see a big warning thing about there's no buttons assigned to this. It's fine. You won't need it if you're playing sim only. You won't need it. So that's a good rundown of the settings that I use. That's it, I think. Hopefully I'll be able to get an F-18 video out next if there's a lobby. So I'll see ya.